Boruto episode 96, Blood, Sweat, and Namida. This episode would have been up a bit sooner, or this review for the episode, even though it still basically would have been a week late anyway, but for whatever reason, when I recorded this last night, the video just had no sound. Like, it made no sense whatsoever. It literally, the whole video recorded, and there was just no sound whatsoever. And I recorded it, like, in between two other videos, I think, or it may have been the first one, I guess. I don't know what the deal was, but, yeah, like, for some reason, it just didn't record. Did the whole review, and it was just like, nope, no sound. So that was one of two screw-ups that I had with reviews last night. But got through the episode. It literally went as expected. I think I said even in my last review, I was like, she's going to train with the water jutsu. It's not going to work. She's going to go right back to her original jutsu, but figure out a way to actually utilize it. That's exactly what happened. But, excuse me, I will say this. I love the visuals for it. That was the biggest surprise. Like, the whole episode went exactly as I thought. But we get to the end, and she actually uses the training that she had with the water jutsu for her own unique jutsu. And it was actually super cool. It made no sense because she literally, like, focuses it in on the scream. And, like, these, like, energy birds started flying around and, like, flying into the beams. And I was like, this doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But it looks super, super cool. So I was like, well, I love it. It's so illogical. It was super weird. I was like, why'd they make birds suddenly start, popping up out of nowhere? So I was like, this is weird. But visually, it was super cool. So I love the way it looked. She basically, the way they drew it was like the dude got hit with like a Kamehameha wave or something. Like he was, they did the disintegration move that they do in anime when people scream and then they turn into like just the black lines. But he was fine. Shouldn't have been, but he was fine. And so, ultimately everything works. And she tries to use it again, but she doesn't have complete control over it. So she does like the normal scream at the end. But I was like, well, that's cool. We did get some decent action. At least we got to see that Nue actually has grown. He's in like a tiger size mode now. So I thought that was pretty cool from Sumini. Namida, during her natural training in general was entertaining, especially, once it got to the end and we see her go back to the technique, but with the new visuals. That was super cool. Wasabi doing her cat cloak was cool. When they were training and she kicked Namida in the stomach, that really caught me off guard. Like, that was like, it took me back to like when Naruto and Sasuke fight at the end. Well, I guess technically it's not the end of the original series, but when they have their first big fight and Naruto punches Sasuke in the stomach and Sasuke has this face where his eye, like his pupils aren't even circles, they're just lines and like his face is all messed up. It made me think of that. And she kicked her so hard her foot disappeared into her stomach. And I was like, geez. I wasn't expecting that for their training segment, but it was entertaining to watch. So, ultimately, a generic, decent episode. This is the like full-on Z team. Like, they just aren't important at all. But it was cool to see Anabi. I will say it would have been cooler if they did anything relevant to the Hyuga clan, considering all the freaking abilities they have. Like, I legitimately think she only uses the Byakugan once in this whole episode, and it was during their training session. Like, I don't believe she does it during the fight sequences. She doesn't do 8 trigrams. She doesn't do, like, rotation. It made no sense. I was like, I know she's not as trained as Hinata, because obviously they're different ages, but it's not like she didn't grow up in the war. It's not like she was in the same era as the kids. Like, she's a Jonin for a reason. One of the whole movies, like Naruto the Last, was literally about her being kidnapped. Like, she's been through some crap. Like, she knows how to fight. And it was like, why didn't they do anything cool? Like, why couldn't they just do it where there were like twice as many bandits and the episode played out exactly the same? Because even with Hanabi being as strong as she is, it's still like 20 people instead of like, basically there were like 5 people and they couldn't take them on. Like, she would be fighting with the kunai just like the rest of the girls. And I was like, that doesn't make sense. Like, this is a Hyuga member who has the Byakugan who could do like so many different techniques. It was like, I know, like, they basically, after Neji, he was the only one that ever did like 8 trigrams anyway. But I was like, man, like, couldn't she do any of the moves that they do? Like, do rotation in there. 8 trigrams is personally my favorite. I just think it's super cool. But the whole point of that is, like, they have such high speed that if someone's within the 8 trigrams, diagram, they can hit anyone within that circle. And it's like, couldn't she have done anything like that? Or at least just like, the gentle fist where it's just like the air blast. Even though that's not nearly as sweet as 8 trigrams. But I was like, whole episode, I'm like, this is dumb. Like, why the heck doesn't she have any of the normal, Hyuga capabilities during this fight? Because she should be able to take out those people. Like, it makes sense. If it's Konohamaru, it's like, all right, his special thing is the Rasengan. He can do shadow clones, of course, but his Rasengan is like, if they're fighting a dozen people, he can't be like, all right, I'm going to take out this one dude with a Rasengan, and then there's still 11 other people to fight the kids. Like, it doesn't make sense. He has to go in with one single strike on one person. And that makes sense. With Hanabi, or anyone really of the Hyuga clan, they have they have rotation. They have the 360-degree vision. Well, if they do that, I think specifically that was for Neji because he was always like shooting off a bunch of chakra so that he could do that. But even without that sort of element, she still had rotation. She still had 8 trigrams. She still had gentle fist in general. I'm sure she's strong enough to shoot like the concussive waves if she does it. And it was just like, we didn't see that at all. She blocked with some kunai, and I think she does like a kick, or, she does some fighting, but I was like, none of this says it's a Hyuga member. It could have been like literally any other person. And I was just like, why did they bother putting her in there if they weren't going to utilize the fact that she's, a Hyuga member? Like, just show off some cool techniques or something. And they just didn't. I was like, well, that was dumb. So that's like my mini rant. It was much longer than I did it the first time because it really annoyed me. But that's my mini rant on them having Hanabi in there as a part of the Hyuga clan. And it was like, put some Hyuga moves in there. Do something that makes the episode a little bit cooler. So I felt like that was a huge moment of wasted potential where it's like, why not just put that in there? Like, have her do 8 trigrams, or, if not that, since, like I said, basically they got rid of it after Neji, or even before he died. Once Shippuden came along, he was just shooting air blasts, and I was like, well, this sucks compared to 8 trigrams, which 8 trigrams is, like, my favorite move in the series, outside of, like, Chidori, really. And I was just like, man, that just sucks. So I was like, all right, well, that's annoying that you put a cool character in there who can do some sweet stuff, and then they just don't even bother to put it in, even for a little bit. Like, just one bit of rotation, some 8 trigrams, gentle fist, just blow some people back. Like I said, throw in more random bandits so that it makes sense that, the episode plays out exactly the same. Just throw in a little bit of extra couple of hits, and that's really it. But they didn't do that, so I thought that was annoying. But in general, it was a filler episode. Not much to it. The next episode, or I guess the most recent one actually, being Shikadai wanting to be a politician. It was interesting because it's like, all right, well, that just seems dumb. I mean, this show, me being older and having watched Naruto pretty much since the beginning, I was like, all right, I know that, Boruto is made for, younger generations. That's why when the series first started, they were like re-explaining everything that had to do with jutsu and all that stuff. So it makes sense, but it's like, if this is meant for kids, even if it was meant for older people, it's like, who wants to go into characters, anime ninja politics? Like, that's just annoying. But they've done some epic stuff before. These aren't the same writers, naturally. But they've done some epic stuff before with Shikamaru, like, every time, the stuff with him and Asuma. So they can make it amazing if it's done well. So I'm cautiously optimistic because they always get into, like, it's not just, oh, he's the smart character, he wants to do this. It always gets into much more than just being smart. It's like, devotion and helping the people that matter and trying to be smart enough to actually do everything perfectly, and the philosophical element of sacrifice and pawns and kings and queens, all that stuff, and just the will of fire and all that is always in there. So they do some great stuff with it, but I don't know if I'm that hopeful for it. I would love for that to be the case, and it turns out to be an unbelievably surprising episode, and it's just great, and we get to see that element with Shikamaru and Shikadai, but it's just like, I don't think that's really going to be the case. I would love for it to happen, but I don't know. Ultimately, it's just like, I don't really see that taking place. But that's just my opinion on the matter. But like I said, the episode, in general, filler, Z team for sure. But it was cool to see anyway. I like that. I doubt we'll see Namida actually use that ability, more than maybe like 3 or 4 more times. It'll take like another 40 freaking episodes before we see that actually happen again, and she becomes a bit more relevant. But filler time, it is what it is at this point. It just is what it is. Hopefully that changes because at least with the most recent episode for Shikadai, that's episode 97, so we're only 3 episodes away from episode 100. So I'm like, they better do something cool, or at least get into the arc. Let it at least be the beginning of whatever new arc they're gonna do. If they're popping in all these fillers, hopefully episode 100, if it's not a great filler, is at least the beginning of an arc, and hopefully it's at least a cool beginning, to the new arc. Especially considering the opening has, literally had nothing to do with anything that's happened so far. I thought the opening was going to be like this whole big thing where they were fighting like this giant dragon monster. I thought that was going to take place, during the arc, of course, of them going through to the village in the stone. That didn't end up happening. I thought something was going to take place there with them fighting like this crazy dragon creature and Gaara's kids coming back and stuff like that. But they've had that opening for such a long time. I'm like, well, that hasn't happened yet. And, if they start the arc now, it wouldn't make sense to have that opening anymore, because it would be like, by the time you end the arc, that freaking opening would have been on like 40 episodes or something. So that opening has to be going away. We have to be getting a new OP fairly soon, I would imagine, probably around episode 100. If not episode 100. So I'm just like, well, it's still a cool opening. I still like the song. I think the opening, them like basically fighting like this almost like stone dragon looking thing, is super cool. It's just never happened. Like none of that it takes place at all in the actual the arc, the last big arc that we actually had. So I'm like, well, what the heck are we headed towards? Because the opening is generally supposed to be like, this is what's happening in the arc. These are characters you should expect. I was thinking Gaara's kids were gonna come back, and they would kind of be like when Gaara and his team first came back, and so they'd be helping out, and that they aren't there. Nothing has happened in any way, shape, or form like that. Gaara has technically shown up because they were about to go into, or no, that wasn't the case. I just recently saw like one of the old Naruto movies. That's totally different. So Gaara didn't even show up. None of that happened. I was thinking of an old movie. But yeah, I was like, all right, why are they there? What was the point of the, like I said, admittedly cool opening? But none of that actually happened in this season. So super weird, but we'll see what happens going to episode 100. But we'd love to know what you guys thought about this episode, so please put your comments down in the comment section below. Let me know your favorite parts about it, least favorite parts about it. Considering what we're doing right now as far as just filler stuff, what would you guys like to see? What would you have done differently with this episode? I think is a better question. What would you have changed around? What would you have introduced? For me personally, the biggest thing is definitely just have Hanabi fight more. Like, she's a Hyuga, she has cool abilities. Let's see them. I like the Hyuga clan more than I like the Uchiha clan. As much as I do like Sada and Sasuke, of course. But always, Neji was always my favorite. He always like coolest moves, coolest costume. Next to Sasuke with the black suit that he had for like 2 episodes because it was too much to draw in the manga. So that's why he went back to his blue costume. For anyone who never knew that, when he had that black one, it was so much to draw in the manga. It was like, yeah, we just got to go back to the blue because it's just simple lines instead of having to draw like that whole pattern that he had with all the bandages. Sasuke showing up more than Neji was like, yeah, that's a bit much for us. So let's just shoot him back to the blue, which is really sad because that was legitimately my favorite costume in the whole series. But I'll let you know what you guys would have changed about this episode, and of course what you guys thought about it in general. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.